Tonight is the beginning of Shavuos, which is the holiday which we celebrate the giving of the Torah. And our tradition tells us that the Torah was given to us on the morning of Shavuos. God appeared on Mount Sinai and gave the 10 Commandments. Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and when he came down, he gave us the full Torah, the 613 Commandments. It's also a holiday which the tradition is, on the second day, we have Yizkor services. And Yizkor services is a way for us to remember the generations that are past. But I think it's more important than just remembering those generations is to carry on their legacy. And I'd like to merge these two ideas in a very simple fashion. There's a groundbreaking article written by Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, the son of Rabbi Yasher Ber Soloveitchik, who was the head of the yeshiva in Yeshiva University. And he talked about the difference between a mimetic tradition and a textual tradition. Mimetic tradition is basically one in which we follow what we've always been doing by just imitating our parents. So the generation that passed, many of our parents or grandparents came over from Europe, not all of them, but many of them, and they came from traditional households. How traditional to the right or to the left really isn't important. But in Europe, there was Judaism, and ideas of Torah and tradition were just something that you found in the family. You just saw on an everyday. You somehow took it into your life without even realizing it. And then you copied that. So you knew how to do things, whether it was Shabbat or a holiday or Torah ideas, certain halachot. They were all things which we just somehow learned from our parents without even realizing we learned them. And he suggests that that was true in Europe, but in America today, or in the last number of years, we've moved to a textual type of tradition, where a lot of our learning, and this is true, again, across the spectrum from right to left, is based on text, by studying, whether it's the Talmud or a million books which have been published on Jewish law and Jewish ideas, Jewish commentaries that are found not only in the original Hebrew, but are found in English and many other languages for that matter. And he talks about the difference, and the tone of the religion when it becomes textual versus mimetic, versus one which you learn from your family. But I don't want to focus on the nature of the religion, which is the product of that way of carrying on a tradition, but maybe we have to just think about the fact that we don't have that mimetic tradition anymore. We have lost, to a large degree, our ability just to remember that which our parents did. Many of us do, but many do not, and many have lost big chunks of that tradition. And therefore, perhaps we have an obligation, if we want to carry on the tradition of our parents. We don't necessarily have to do exactly like our parents or grandparents did, but perhaps we should use this textual revolution within Judaism to at least explore what Judaism is all about. So when we no longer could just remember what was done, and it's very difficult to necessarily copy and to emulate our parents or grandparents, we have the ability to study and take that in a different fashion, and then do whatever you want with it, whether you just leave it as learning or whether it translates into different ways of living. That's left up to the individual. But I think we have to give it all a chance. So we have the Yizkor remembering the previous generation. And as I say, it's important now to carry on the work and the Judaism of that generation. And the way we could do it is through the receiving of the Torah on Shavuos, and maybe just committing ourselves to putting in 15 minutes a day of studying some Jewish text. And you don't have to actually have a book anymore. You can go online, and perhaps in a later video, I'll suggest different sites where you could learn. But there's so many ways that you could learn these days online, whether it's through videos, through classes online, through recordings, through texts which are available both in Hebrew and in English. And to put in 15 minutes is something which I think we all could do. 15 minutes a day. I once did that, and I realized my knowledge of the prophets when I was younger was not sufficient. It's still not sufficient. But I realized that I never actually read through the prophets. I had read through the Torah, but not the prophets. And I said, you know what? I'll do 15 minutes a day. And I started doing that. I still haven't finished, but I did a large chunk of it. And when I got into the 15 minutes a day, I found that sometimes I really enjoyed it, and I spent more time. And when I was home during breaks, when had been in yeshiva, I spent more than the 15 minutes. I put in half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you get interested. And today there's so many avenues for you to find your particular interest and to delve into, whether it's a text or an idea, a philosophy, whether it's Jewish mysticism or general attitudes of Judaism or textual learning in Chumash. There's so many things we could do, and if we put aside 15 minutes every day, you'll be surprised how that time could expand. And even with just 15 minutes, how much learning you actually do when you finally look back over a few months or even a year, and you see how much learning you've done and how much knowledge you've accumulated during that time. So let's make this Shavuos a time not only of Kabbalas HaTorah, of receiving the Torah by remembering what the Torah was given to us, but actually doing it, living it once again, to receive the Torah. And that is the way we're actually going to take the memory of the generations that are past and really make them live on for generations to come. Good Yontif.